Welcome once again here on the Regional Radio Sports Network. My name is Paul Condry. I'm the president and founder of the Regional Radio Sports Network. Glad that you've stopped by here today alongside Scott Cooper. Glad that you've hopped along with us here today for the Scott Cooper Show. That we have a great guest especially lined up here for you today. Coop's going to talk about this momentarily. But once again, we thank you for joining us here on Regional Radio Sports. Coop, it's an exciting time of the year. School's getting underway. Since we talked last, we've had a wide variety of different things going on, but you have a very special guest. You remember in the movie Hoosiers? You remember that movie? One of the all-time greatest movies. And there's one of the things. There's one of my favorite lines of all time in the movie Hoosiers is, in particular, thought was tallest hog in the trough. You remember Gene Hackman saying that?
Yeah.
Remember that in the movie? Well, we're blessed here today because that is going to come true to form here today, and I know she'll take that with the grain of salt that
it was meant.
Yes, it was. Dr. Susan Elrod is with us, who is the chancellor here at Indiana University. We're blessed to have her here today because she's making an impact not only here locally, but in regards to this campus-wide initiatives, and we're getting excited. So tell us a little bit about Dr. Elrod and some of the things that she's doing. I know you're excited because you got someone who shares the same vision that you do, and as the interim athletic director of men's basketball coach, it's an exciting time to have someone who shares some of those same types of thoughts, minds, and visions.
Yeah, no, Dr. Elrod's been great. She arrived here in 2019, right before COVID, so I can only imagine what that was like for her, trying to, push her initiative here in the university, and obviously getting delayed pretty significantly as we all dealt with that. But she's been an advocate for athletics. I think everything. And I think Coach Bruce would back this up too. Everything that she's done has been very supportive of us, and I don't think we would have survived that time the way that we did, and obviously grown out of that in a very positive way if she weren't a part of that. And I've worked at 5 colleges or universities in my career, and you see that if you don't have the support from the top, you can't have the success that we've had here in the last 4 years as an athletic department. So we're very lucky to have her, and she's done some great things here, and working on some great things right now, restructuring some things that are going to help us move forward in what isn't an easy time in college athletics. And I think as an interim athletic director, my job is to really do 3 things, and that is to help raise the profile of the university, help enhance the student experience, and help be an extension of the educational experience here at IU South Bend. And she's given us the freedom to do those 3 things, and what those are as an interim obviously is different than what Coach Bruce had, but at the same time, I don't feel that she's going to be looking over my shoulder all the time, making sure I'm doing things a certain way. She's going to trust us to do the job that we've done, and that's huge in our world. So,
Dr. Elrod, I'll be more than happy to look over his shoulder if need be. If you need someone to keep an eye on, we look over your shoulders literally throughout the course of each day because we live in the same subdivision, just one street over. So we keep an eye on him all the time as it is.
He's pretty tall, though. So
yes, he is.
Hard to look over the shoulders of.
Hey, well, let's talk about the journey to get here. I mean, I went back and I looked at the bio. You've been everywhere from California. I mean, I looked at this: Cal State, Cal Poly State, the University of Wisconsin, Whitewater, UC Davis. I guess the number one question I had when I first read this, you worked in California where it's nice and sunny and warm all the time, and then all of a sudden you navigate your way towards Wisconsin,
right.
And now here it's like you're a glutton for punishment moving into the cold weather area. So tell us a little bit about some of those moves along the way and how it's helped you in the position you're at right now.
Well, I do love the snow, so we get plenty of that here. That wasn't really the reason I ended up in the Midwest, but it's a nice benefit. So I did spend most of my career formatively out in California in the California State University system, which is 23 universities, much like IU South Bend and UW Whitewater, where I was before. And so part of my leadership journey was taking advantage of opportunities that would allow me to be in positions where I could be the most effective. So I think that's one of the challenges that we have as leaders, is being in a place where I can fully utilize the skill set that I have, and also in a place where I have a passion for the mission. And so that's really what took me across the country and what caused me to accept the position here as chancellor. This university is an amazing one. It is embedded in this community. It is a driver for social change, workforce, and economic development, and that's what I love about IU South Bend. And just to tie that to our athletic programs, I see them as an important component of our mission here, not only on the campus with the student athletes, we recruit students from all over to come and be athletes at our institution, but then those student athletes are leaders on campus. They're visible on campus. They contribute to the student experience and the community experience. We know we have lots of community members that come to our games, and that's part of what we do here at this institution.
Well, I can speak to this because IU South Bend has affected my family. My wife graduated from here. Two of my daughters have graduated from here. So I have seen the effect that the educational process has here on my family and from my standpoint. So I would echo your thoughts about that probably as vehemently as anybody would. I'm a big proponent of what we've been able to do here. And having worked with athletics here for the last almost 2 decades now, I would say that Coach Bruce and now Coop have done a great job in regards to that. But I want to talk about the trip that you took to Wisconsin Whitewater. Coop and I were back and forth and talking about some of the initiatives that they had going on there. Very successful, as well as any institution in the country, especially when you put it in the context where they're at. So is it safe to say that if Wisconsin Whitewater can achieve some of those athletic successes, Indiana University South Bend can do the same?
Sure. Absolutely. And I think there was a commitment to athletics at UW Whitewater, and I've been trying to bring that same commitment. You heard, Coop talk about my support of the programs, and it starts at the top. I think having that commitment, that support, we've been working on some financial ways that we can continue to support our programs, but that's where it starts. And then it goes to the coaching staff and the other staff to continue to do the amazing work they do with our student athletes, bringing them in, coaching them, winning those championships. That's a huge deal. When your school starts to win those conference championships, we got the national ones in our sights, right? We've been a few times. That's when it starts to really build up. And then we know that has an effect not only on the community, but our ability to recruit new students just in general, because they want to be part of a winning school. So those are some things I saw at Whitewater. One thing that I loved, and I don't know if we'll be able to do this here, I've talked about it with folks, is part of the new student orientation involved them painting the road purple from the university to the football stadium. Each new freshman class got a section of the road to paint. And it was, with the athletic paint that sort of wears off over time. But those new students then attached themselves not only to that road, but to the athletic programs in that physical event. And so I think we're working on some things like that here. And again, those are ways to build spirit, to build belonging, to build connection of our general student body to our athletic programs as another way that we can promote, helping students persist and be retained and actually graduate here.
Coop, I know that you've got some questions for Dr. Elrod. As you look at it from you have a different chair. You and I have talked a lot about when an assistant, the varsity coach, moves over 18 inches to that next chair, his world completely changes dramatically in so many different ways, from dealing with the media, dealing with all kinds of moving parts. Now, for you've moved over, you've been in that chair for that 18-inch spot for all these years. Now you've moved over to another chair. So I want you to talk about as you perceive athletics from a different viewpoint than you probably ever have in your life. You probably thought, hey, if I was doing this all this time, I may do this. So tell me about it from your new chair. How do you look at things?
Yeah, well, for me in particular, I had to be very careful of not coming in with any preconceived notions, because I did grow up around athletics, and my father was an athletic director. My younger brother was an athletic director here, in the IU system and things like that. So I didn't want to come in thinking, okay, I knew the job right away. I wanted to come in asking questions and, all right, what do we need to do to get better and things like that. And that process is still going on for me. And, luckily Chancellor Elrod's got a great staff to work with. And, her chief of staff, Elizabeth Pace, has been a wonderful help in all that, pointing me in the right direction to, hey, I need, simple things like our website and some issues we're dealing with on a national level there. Who do I need to talk to about that? And so I think from my standpoint, it's been really good to have those resources, and that she's had, her staff in particular has been incredibly helpful with that, and that process is still going on for me. So I think in my case, it's been, where are we? Where do we need to go? And trying to define that a little bit. So I touched on that just earlier about, raising the profile of the university, those three things that we just talked about, enhancing the student experience and being an extension of the educational program. Some of that I can look back at our program and what's been successful for us here and how do we translate that to the athletic department. Some of that has absolutely nothing to do with us, So, for example, in men's basketball, for example, we're a very high profile sport, especially in Indiana, so if we're successful, we're going to end up in the paper every single time. That's not a problem. But what happens when our baseball team is or our soccer team is,
exactly,
that are our lower profile sports? How do I,
raise their profile?
Yeah, exactly. How do I do that? And how does that affect, the university? So, somebody like Rob, who's sitting over here now, we've just been talking about him getting a commercial out there so we can do things like that. And we were talking about his experience being a student at John Adams High School and how he had never really even been on the campus before. And, we still run into those problems today. So, what can we do that, is going to help connect us to the community or things that we're working on at the moment? How do we get campus more involved? And, Chancellor Elrod just talked about that. And we're looking at some things that we've been working with, the Department of Communication Studies and getting some of they have internship requirements over there. And so getting their kids that have those involved with us so that non-athletes are taking an interest in athletics too, even though they may not be fans of sports, and things like that, and giving them a stake in that. I've got a meeting coming up with the student government here on some facility upgrades that we can make that I've never been a part of. So,
he's learning a lot, I think.
You have no idea. Yeah, you have no idea. And again, I've been very fortunate that we have a supportive staff that, Chancellor Elrod's provided that I can ask, Corey Vitangeli is our new Vice Chancellor for Student Engagement. Like, hey, how do I talk to student government? This isn't something I've done before. This isn't something that, for example, my brother who worked in the IU system, they didn't have to do that there because they were funded differently and things like that. And they just don't have the facilities that we have. So it's been interesting for me, talking to your staff in particular, like, oh, wow, there's a lot I've got to take in here, a lot of information before we can come up with a plan to go forward and do those three things.
Yep. Well, one thing I love about coaches is they're leaders.
Absolutely.
And they foster leadership on their teams. I mean, they have to. You've got, team captains and you've got student athletes who need to be leaders on the court, in the field, whatever they're doing. And so I appreciate Coach Cooper's orientation to being a learner too, because to me, that's what leadership is a lot about, is asking questions, learning, being open, and knowing when you maybe made a mistake and kind of go, whoops, all right, we got to fix that, or I got to go back. Or hopefully not making a mistake because you asked enough critical questions up front to head in the right path, and not assuming that you know everything. And so Coach Cooper's doing a great job of going into that new territory.
Dr. Elrod, talk about the big picture of Indiana University, South Bend in relative comparison to the other regional sites, and how everything kind of goes through Bloomington. I mean, there's a big picture here that you have, and some guidelines that you have to stay within, because the folks in B-Town said, "Hey, this is the way we roll."
Sure. So, Indiana University South Bend, is a regional campus of IU, and I've been in two other large systems of higher education, and it's not that different, really. There's always system-wide, policies, expectations, ways you got to do things.
Sure.
And so being part of the IU, I'll call it a system in this context. It is one university, but there's a systemness to it.
Sure.
And so, you just have to figure out what are the policies, what are the expectations, and then you just figure out how to operate within them. It's exciting, I think, to be part of a Big Ten university. That was not true in the other roles that I played. I was at, regional campuses that were independent in a system where, for example, the UW system, we weren't attached at all to Madison. We were in the same system as them. But so here, we're attached to IU. And so there's a lot that comes with that reputationally, in terms of resources, et cetera. So I think that elevates our stature. There's so many people in this community that love IU. They're graduates of any campus of IU, maybe IU South Bend, but we've got two vice chancellors who are IU alums. One's also IU South Bend alum. And so it's that IU Hoosier spirit, and we say Antietam pride, that I think really makes this university special.
When you look at the big picture of athletics moving forward in today's educational dynamics, we see such a wide variety. We have faith-based schools, we have state schools, we have so many things, and there's so many players, if you will, in that particular situation. One thing that's been really neat about IU, and I can say this once again, can speak from experience, the affordability of coming to school here is off the charts. I think there's something that a lot of student athletes should seriously consider, simply that, the fact that leaving school without a lot of debt is really a good situation. It's going to set you on a path to completely, to a financial freedom is a great thing for people to have. So let's talk about the importance that the affordability of coming to school here, as well as some of the flexibility that you have by having not only Bloomington's effect, but also having your own regional opportunities. Can you speak to that?
Sure. We are the most affordable higher education opportunity that students have in the state of Indiana, all the regional campuses. And that's great for students. I wonder sometimes how students are doing it, even with scholarships at private institutions, and they graduate and they go become teachers. Teachers don't make a whole lot of money, and I just worry about those folks with that debt. You can come here and not have that debt. You can, there's lots of opportunities for financial aid. We're working on improving scholarships for our student athletes as well. And so I just hope people are thinking about that when they're making choices about where to go to school, because the other thing that maybe some people don't know is when students graduate from IU South Bend, they get an Indiana University diploma. They're graduating from IU, not IU South Bend. And so that brings with it, hopefully, a reputation and an entrance into a worldwide alumni network that goes beyond maybe what some other schools, might provide.
Okay, Coop, let's talk about current situations. We have athletics and maybe some growth opportunities. Let's say I'm going to give you just a hypothetical situation. Let's say we're going to decide you have a vision to bring, let's use this sport as an example because you have the facilities for this, men's volleyball. You already have women's volleyball, so you have the physical infrastructure to do something like that. If you think this is a good idea, would it be under your auspice, or is this something that Dr. Elrod is going to come in and say, hey, listen, I think if we hire a good volleyball coach, we already have the physical stuff that we need here. I mean, it's not like we're asking you to, hey, let's start football tomorrow, because let's face it, that's not going to happen. Certainly unless somebody. So
I'm a huge football fan, so I wish I could.
So am I, as you well know.
Love basketball, love all the other sports.
So how do you approach something like that with Dr. Elrod?
Well, I think it actually starts below her level first.
Okay.
We'd right away we'd have to talk about Title IX issues here because we are such a female-heavy campus, and I don't think that's going away anytime soon. And that's kind of a trend I think in higher education in general.
Absolutely.
Is that colleges are becoming more and more female-heavy. So right away you got to talk about proportion issues and all the issues that go into that and starting the sport.
Point.
So we'd probably have to check with our deputy Title IX director and probably run that all the way up to Bloomington with that stuff. Do all the survey processes that go with that and all that things. Then we'd have to check with funding, and that's where we start getting up to her level. So we start reaching out to Andy Williams, our vice chancellor, who again is an IU South Bend alum and kind of gets how things work here as well as anybody, and in this community in particular, if there's the interest and those type of things. So we went through this process a little bit when I started here, so I got to see it firsthand because the NAI had gone to a rule that you had to have 6 sports, I believe it was, to be eligible for postseason play back in 2013 or 14, whatever it was. It was one of my first years here, and that process had already kind of begun. And then we went through the AD transition between Gary Dembski and Coach Bruce. And so right away when that happened, he and I were literally the only 2 full-time employees in the entire department as we were building things. And so, I got to be a part of that firsthand. And you realize how many more things go into that. So, reaching out to her office, like, hey, here's what we need, here's what we're doing. And then, some things that happened over at Holy Cross College with their baseball program and stuff like that. We kind of, you see some of the mistakes we made in starting that program and things like that too. So you kind of hopefully lean back on that experience. And, as her office starts asking questions, well, if we want to do this, what are we going to run into? And, hey, historically, this is what's happened, but here we are at this point, and, answering all those types of questions again, and then I'm sure that's where things get run up, to her to be the final decision maker.
Sure.
And I've always said this, as assistant coaches, their job is to feed us the information, and the head coaches, it's our job to make the decisions.
Right.
Once we can get all that information to Chancellor Elrod, it's her job to make the decision, and it's our job to support it publicly. So all
This
the
is
pressure.
why I love coaches. They
Yeah.
get it because they're doing it in their own sports. You know,
Right.
I love it.
Yeah, so
And I think, you know, for me, it's a infrastructure issue, but it is a budget issue. You know, we've got to make sure we've worked real hard over the last few years to make sure now all of our 6 sports that we have full-time coaches, full-time head coaches. That wasn't always the case. We've worked hard to improve the scholarship situation. And so all those things take money. So if we're going to hire a full-time volleyball coach, that means we got to have an assistant coach. It means we got to have money to travel.
Exactly.
It means we got to have uniform. I mean, so there's money attached to that. You know, I don't know that we even have a locker room. We would have a locker room for the team either. So I think there's a lot to think about. And what we're really focused on right now is the 6 sports that we do have. Let's just focus on them, build them up over the next few years. As the university's enrollment picture improves, which it has already, we're up this semester for the first time in 14 years, which is amazing. You know, we got to keep that trend going. So as our resource picture changes and we get these sports on solid ground, really solid ground, all 6 of them, then we can start thinking about, all right, what are the next ways we want to expand?
Once again, hypothetically, Dr. Elrod, when you look at from your chair, and you had a chance to just once again, in the perfect world, you'd like to say, that if I had one wish for Indiana University South Bend in regards to athletics, and the reason I'm saying athletics is because this is Coop's gig, and I want to make sure that take care of my guy here. So give us an idea, if there was one thing that you could wish that he could have to enhance the student athlete's experience, what would that be?
I think it's more scholarships. And so it would be great.
He got the nod on that one.
He did. He did.
very emphatic.
So, you know, alumni giving, sponsorships within the community, all of that financial support helps us support the athletes and support the programs. That would be the very first thing that I would wish for, is that we had more scholarship support for our student athletes. We know that when we have scholarships for our athletes, we can recruit better athletes. We can be competitive with the private colleges and others in our conference and around. So that would be my wish. More scholarships, more people coming forward, opening up their checkbooks and donating.
I'm giving you the wish list too, Coop. I mean, if you were to say, Dr. Elrod, this is my wish, what would your wish be?
I think she hit it on the head. I think it starts with scholarships. I mean, you're only as good as the people you can bring in here. And, you know, along that lines, I think the next one would be staffing. You know, I think you're as good as the help that you have. And you know, it's tough. You know, we're in the situation that we are, but we've been very fortunate to have a lot of really good assistant coaches and things like that. And that's just, some of that's pure dumb luck because people are in the area, and we're in a place like South Bend that's just big enough to find, you know, those guys other jobs, or those women other jobs that they can do both. But at the same time, you know, I think that's always where you start, is how are you going to take care of your student athletes? How are you going to take care of the people that make you better? And, you know, I think those are the two that, you know, as we find ways to grow, and you know, Dr. Elrod talked on it, we're already working on some sponsorship things. We're trying to do some things to engage the community more, so we can get more giving from those type of places and take things forward. Those are the places that we probably would need to spend our resources first.
Well, I know this fall is off to a great start. I know basketball is officially going to get going here in a couple of weeks. I know you're excited, but let's take a moment and let's highlight the improvement that the women's soccer team has. And Bobby has done a tremendous job. I mean, a lot of growing pains to start, but boy, I tell you what, you look right now, here we are in the middle of September, if you will. Still a winning record. What a great job by Coach Barnes and his gals.
Yeah, it's been exciting too, because that hasn't been hasn't been an ezy one to start for, especially because we started it during COVID.
Yeah, note to self: don't start a new program before a global pandemic. That was the biggest problem that we had there.
Learning experiences right on get thrown to the fire, but. Yeah, he's done a great job, and you know, I think it's neat to see the excitement that those girls have. The ones that have been through the program too, right? You know, there's a buzz about them and some things like that. So that's not to say it's going to be easy the rest of the way, but they've done a great job of you know, building that, taking it forward, and I think it's only going to continue. And then you know, I think one of the things that we need to touch on by the time this thing airs is, and this is actually new information probably for everybody here, but is our athletic training staff, Lauren Burrish, our assistant athletic trainer, was just named the NAI National Athletic Trainer of the Year.
Woo!
So,
Outstanding.
I think,
Nice.
their support through all
She's
this
amazing.
stuff. She really is, and their support through everything we've gone through with COVID and and injuries and things that happen when you have smaller teams helps you build to the bigger teams and all that. So we wouldn't be here without their help. So a lot of good things going on, and I think you're going to see our volleyball team start to get better here as they get into the less challenging part of their schedule, even though they're going through some growing pains. And obviously men's and women's basketball, we've had some pretty good things going, and I'm really excited about our spring sports. I think softball and baseball are really going to surprise some people this year. So it's an exciting time to be here.
All right. Dr. Elrod, thanks for being here.
Thank you so much. Can I just add one last thing in about our athletic training staff? I mean,
Yeah, please.
you mentioned Lauren. They are so committed to our students and our program. They were essential to us getting through COVID
Sure,
safely.
Absolutely.
And they're there to help our students, not only train safely, but then recover from any injuries that they do receive. So it's such a great cohesive group, I would say. And I know that Coach Cooper's leadership is helping advance that even further. So I'm thrilled to have been on the show this morning. It's nice to meet you, and great to have some more time with Coop.
Coop, thanks for being here. Blast as always.
You put my name on the show, I'll show up.
All right, there you go. Scott Cooper, the athletic director, interim tag, if you will. We'll talk with Coop again next month. But once again, thank you for Dr. Susan Elrod and for all of us here at Regional Radio Sports. I'm Paul Condry. God bless you all.